Welcome to my channel. I'm glad you're here. Whether you're a longtime history enthusiast or just curious about the stories that shaped our world, you're in the right place. Together, we'll uncover the lives, choices, and legacies of the leaders who changed the course of history. So, grab your curiosity, settle in, and let's dive into today's story. You know, history is not merely a collection of dates and events, it's really a living, breathing story. It's the story of people. And right at the heart of this grand narrative, we find the figures of great leaders. These are the men and women whose choices honestly carved the very path we walk today. Their decisions, whether made in moments of crisis or calm, didn't just fade away with time. Instead, they sent ripples across the oceans of history. And those ripples, well, they continue to wash upon our shores, shaping our world in ways we often fail to see. The world we live in is a direct result of their triumphs and their failures, their wisdom and, their folly. So think of the world as this vast, intricate tapestry. Each thread is a life, a choice, a moment. The great leaders, they're the master weavers. They're the ones who pull at those threads, creating patterns of immense complexity and scale. Their actions can change the color of the entire design. They can introduce new textures and even redirect the flow of the narrative. We study them not just to understand the past, but honestly, to understand ourselves. Their stories are mirrors, reflecting the potential and the peril of human influence. By looking into these mirrors, we can better grasp the forces that forged our present reality and, continue to define it. The United States, a nation born from revolution and forged in conflict, has been profoundly shaped by these monumental figures. Some were our own, guiding the country through its darkest hours. Others were from distant lands and ancient times, their actions setting in motion a chain of events that would eventually reach American soil. Their influence is woven into the fabric of our laws, our culture, and really our very identity as a nation. To understand America is to understand the leaders, both foreign and domestic, whose shadows stretch long across our history, touching everything from our political system to our deepest held values. This journey we're about to embark on is, honestly, a journey into the heart of leadership. We'll explore the lives of giants. We'll stand in the chambers where they made their fateful choices. We'll walk the battlefields where their ambitions were tested. We'll examine how their leadership, whether for good or for ill, left an indelible mark on the United States. This isn't just a history lesson, it's an exploration of power, of ambition, and of the enduring impact that one person can have upon the destiny of millions. It's the untold story of how the past never truly leaves us. The year is 1860. The United States is not united. It's a nation tearing itself apart at the seams, a house divided by a fundamental, irreconcilable difference. The issue is slavery, an institution that has haunted the country since its very birth. For decades, compromises had been made. Lines had been drawn in the sand like the Missouri Compromise, but these were temporary fixes, fragile patches on a deep, festering wound. The industrial North, with its bustling factories and growing cities, viewed the South's reliance on slave labor as both a moral failing and an economic anachronism. The two regions were becoming two different worlds. The moral question of slavery could no longer be ignored. The nation was a house divided against itself, and many believed it could not stand. Into this storm walked a man from the prairies of Illinois. His name was Abraham Lincoln. He was not a general or a polished aristocrat from the East. He was a self-taught lawyer, a former congressman, a man of humble beginnings. He was a storyteller who spoke in plain language that ordinary people could understand. He wasn't an abolitionist demanding immediate eradication, but his firm stance against the of slavery into new territories was a red line for the South. He was morally opposed to the institution and committed to halting its spread. He used parables and simple truths to explain the most complex of ideas. When he spoke of a house divided, everyone knew what he meant. The southern states, their economies built on the backs of enslaved people, saw Lincoln's election as a direct threat to their way of life. They saw the Republican Party's stance against the expansion of slavery as the beginning of the end for their entire social and economic order. To them, it was an existential crisis, a sign that their voice in the Union was lost. The time for talk was ending. Before Lincoln could even take the oath of office, the House began to crumble. South Carolina seceded from the Union. Soon, other states followed, one by one. They formed their own government, the Confederate States of America. The Union that the Founding Fathers had built with such hope and sacrifice was dissolving. Lincoln faced a choice that no president had ever faced before. He could let the states go in peace and preside over a fractured, diminished nation. Or he could fight to hold the Union together, a decision that would almost certainly lead to a catastrophic and bloody war on American soil. The first shots were fired at Fort Sumter. The Civil War had begun. It was a war of brother against brother, neighbor against neighbor, tearing the very fabric of communities apart. Families were literally torn in two. The initial belief on both sides was that it would be a short, decisive conflict, but that was a tragic, bloody illusion. Lincoln, watching from Washington, was at the heart of the storm. He struggled to find the right general. He went through a succession of commanders, men who were too cautious, too slow, too timid to confront the brilliant and audacious Confederate General Robert E. Lee. He was often frustrated. He felt the immense human cost of every delay, every missed opportunity. As the war raged on, its purpose began to evolve. What started as a conflict to preserve the Union became something more profound. It became a struggle for human liberty. After the bloody Union victory at Antietam, Lincoln finally had the political standing to act. He issued the preliminary Emancipation Proclamation. It declared that as of January 1, 1863, all enslaved people in the rebellious states shall be, thenceforward, and forever, free. It transformed the character of the war. The Union Army was no longer just an army of preservation, but an army of liberation. It also allowed the recruitment of African American soldiers, who would fight with incredible courage for that promised freedom. In November 1863, Lincoln traveled to Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, the site of the war's most terrible battle. He was there to dedicate a cemetery for the thousands who had fallen. In a brief two-minute address, he spoke of a nation conceived in liberty, dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal. He called for a new birth of freedom, government of the people, by the people, for the people shall not perish from the earth. This was Lincoln's ultimate legacy. He not only saved the United States from self-destruction, he gave it a new, more profound and more inclusive reason to exist. He ensured the dead had not died in vain, ensuring the nation would be reborn. Across the Atlantic Ocean, another, far bloodier revolution was raging. While America was a young republic finding its footing, France was in chaos. The French Revolution had overthrown a king, but its noble ideals had descended into the nightmare of the Reign of Terror. Thousands were executed, and the nation teetered on the brink of collapse. It was a nation desperate for order, a vacuum of power waiting to be filled by someone strong enough to seize it. From this chaos, a figure of astonishing talent and ambition emerged. His name was Napoleon Bonaparte. He was not from the heart of France. He was born on the island of Corsica, a man whose fierce local pride at first made him feel like an outsider in the country he would one day rule. This outsider status fueled a relentless drive to prove himself on the grand stage of mainland France. He was a brilliant military mind, a master of strategy and tactics who revolutionized warfare. Napoleon rose through the ranks of the French army with meteoric speed. He was more than just a general. He was a charismatic leader who inspired fierce loyalty in his soldiers, who saw him as one of their own. In 1799, with the government weak and corrupt, Napoleon saw his moment. Through a swift and masterful political maneuver, a coup d'état, he seized power. He became the first consul of France, effectively its ruler. Napoleon's ambition was, well, just boundless. In the year 1804, he actually crowned himself emperor. In a moment of supreme symbolism, he took the crown from the Pope's hands and placed it on his own head, making it pretty clear that his power came from himself alone, not from any divine authority. As emperor, his focus shifted to conquest. He launched a series of military campaigns known as the Napoleonic Wars that would honestly engulf Europe in conflict for more than a decade. He was not just a conqueror, he was a modernizer too. He introduced the Napoleonic Code, a revolutionary legal framework, legal equality, religious toleration, abolition of feudal privileges. Its influence is still felt in legal systems around the world. His grand design was to create a unified European system under French dominance. To achieve this, he knew he had to defeat his most persistent and powerful enemy, Great Britain. Yet, through a single stunning decision, he would shape America more than any other foreign leader. It all began with an island, Saint-Domingue, modern-day Haiti. The army sent to reconquer Haiti was decimated by yellow fever and met fierce resistance from former slaves fighting for their freedom. His North American empire dream was dead. Jefferson recognized the danger. He sent envoys to Paris, authorizing up to $10 million to buy New Orleans and parts of Florida. Napoleon's foreign minister stunned the envoys. What would you give for the whole of Louisiana? The Americans, lacking the authority for such a purchase, were speechless. For $15 million, about 3 cents an acre, the U.S. acquired over 828,000 square miles. The Louisiana Purchase of 1803 doubled the country overnight, a deal driven by Napoleon's desperate need for cash to fund his wars. Napoleon sold a future empire to fund his wars. In doing so, this autocratic emperor accidentally became a major architect of American expansion. He gave the young republic room to grow, enabling westward migration, manifest destiny, and, honestly, the nation we know today. An emperor's gamble in Europe accidentally forged an American empire. As the 1930s drew to a close, a long and menacing shadow was falling over Europe. The aggressive ambitions of Nazi Germany under Adolf Hitler threatened the fragile peace established since the Great War. In Great Britain, the memory of that conflict was still a raw wound. The public, haunted by the trenches and the lost generation, overwhelmingly supported this sentiment. So many politicians sought to avoid another war at all costs. They pursued a policy of appeasement, hoping concessions would prevent full-scale war. But one man stood in stark opposition. He had held many high offices, yet now, due to his unpopular views, lived in the political wilderness. His name was Winston Churchill. His was a voice crying out in warning, often to a dismissive House of Commons. For years, Churchill had been a lonely figure, relentlessly warning Parliament and the British people. He argued for rearmament and for standing firm against aggression. He was called a warmonger, a relic of a past age, out of touch with the overwhelming desire for peace. But history would prove him tragically correct. When Germany invaded Poland in 1939, Churchill's warnings were vindicated. In May 1940, as German forces blitzkrieged across France and the British Army faced annihilation at Dunkirk, Neville Chamberlain resigned. With the Low Countries and France on the brink of defeat, Britain's own survival was in question. The king called upon Winston Churchill to become prime minister. The man who had been dismissed and ridiculed was now the only one deemed capable of leading the nation through the gathering storm. He inherited a desperate situation. France teetered on collapse, and Britain stood almost entirely alone against the might of the Nazi war machine. "I have nothing to offer but blood, toil, tears, and sweat," he declared. His goal was simple: victory, victory at any cost. He promised to fight on the beaches, to fight on the landing grounds, to fight in the fields, to fight in the streets. He promised they would never surrender. Churchill knew that defiance, while essential, was not enough. To win the war, he needed a powerful ally, so he looked across the Atlantic to the United States. America was officially neutral, its people reluctant to enter another European war. Churchill saw a kindred spirit in Franklin D. Roosevelt and began a remarkable correspondence with him. In hundreds of secret letters and telegrams, he painted a vivid picture of Britain's plight and the global threat of Nazism. Churchill's connection to America was also personal. His mother, Jenny Jerome, was an American from Brooklyn. He reminded Americans of their common language, common laws, and common ideals. Slowly, Roosevelt moved the U.S. closer to the Allies. He initiated Lend-Lease, a policy Churchill called a most unsordid act. America became the great arsenal of democracy. The final push came on December 7, 1941. The Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor plunged the United States into the war. The combined power of the British Empire, the United States, and the Soviet Union would form a grand alliance that would ultimately crush the Axis powers and liberate Europe from Nazi rule. The war in Europe ended in May 1945. But Churchill, the man who had led his country through its darkest hour, was not triumphant for long. Just a few months later, in a stunning political upset, he was voted out of office. The British people, weary of war, were now focused on building a new future at home. In March of 1946, he traveled to Fulton, Missouri. With President Harry Truman sitting on the stage behind him, Churchill delivered another of his historic warnings to the world. From Stettin in the Baltic to Trieste in the Adriatic, an iron curtain has descended across the continent. He was laying the intellectual groundwork for the policy of containment and the NATO alliance that would define Western policy for the next 40 years. His courage, his foresight, and his powerful use of language helped shape America's role as a global leader. Let us journey back in time, further than we have gone before. We travel to a world long before the United States was even a dream. Out of the small kingdom of Macedon, a figure of almost mythical proportions blazed across the ancient world. His name was Alexander. Tutored by Aristotle, he loved Greek culture, art, and ideas. He saw Greece as a light to be shared. In just over a decade, Alexander accomplished the impossible. He led his army from Greece across Anatolia, through Egypt into Persia and as far as India. He did not simply destroy. He founded cities. This fusion birthed the Hellenistic age. The Hellenistic world became the cultural bedrock for Rome. Rome preserved this heritage and passed it through the Middle Ages and the Renaissance to the modern West. When America's founders, Thomas Jefferson, John Adams, James Madison, imagined a republic, they were steeped in the classics. Concepts like democracy, a republic, civic virtue, and natural law were woven into the Declaration and the Constitution. This was Alexander's indirect, profound gift to America. His conquest built the cultural bridge that carried Western ideas to America's architects. Nearly 1,500 years after Alexander, a new force erupted from the vast, windswept steppes of Mongolia. At its heart was a man known as Genghis Khan. Through sheer will, strategic genius, and an unmatched ability to unite the fractious Mongol tribes, he forged them into a disciplined and terrifyingly effective military machine. The Mongol conquests were swift and honestly often brutal. They shattered existing empires and redrew the map of Asia and Europe. The scale and speed of their conquest were unlike anything the world had ever seen. For the first time in history, a single power controlled the entire length of the Silk Road. Under the enforced peace of the Pax Mongolica, travel and trade became safer and more frequent than ever before. Goods, technologies, and ideas flowed between China and Europe with unprecedented speed. This new direct line of communication fundamentally changed Europe. When the Mongol Empire later collapsed, these direct land routes became dangerous. The desire to find a new maritime route to the riches of the East became a driving obsession. This quest, born from the world the Mongols made, is what ultimately drove explorers like Christopher Columbus to sail west, leading to the discovery of the Americas and the dawn of a new age. We have walked with giants. We've stood in the shadow of their towering ambitions and witnessed the awesome power of their will. Each leader offers a different lesson. Lincoln teaches us about moral courage. Napoleon, meteoric rise and fall, a cautionary tale. From Churchill, the power of words and strength of resolve. From Alexander and Genghis Khan, a lesson in interconnectedness. They brought progress and destruction. They liberated and they conquered. To study them is to confront the dual nature of power. Their legacies are a mixture of light and shadow, and it is in this complex gray area that the most important truths about leadership reside. The stories of these 5 leaders do not exist in isolation. They are links in an unbroken chain of influence that stretches across the vast expanse of human history. The intellectual world created by Alexander's conquests, the world reshaped by Genghis Khan's empire. Napoleon's European wars created the specific opportunity for the United States to double in size. Then there are the more direct connections. Winston Churchill's alliance with Franklin Roosevelt was a conscious partnership. Abraham Lincoln represents the moment when America had to save itself. He was defending the entire chain of history that had led to the United States. They were links in the chain that connects the ancient world to the modern United States. So why do we tell these stories now? We do so because the challenges of leadership are timeless. But history shows us that other generations have faced their own existential threats. Their ability to navigate these storms offers a powerful antidote to modern cynicism. Ultimately, the study of great leaders is the study of human potential. They remind us that the future is not pre-written. It is shaped by the choices we make today, both as individuals and as a society. By looking back at the giants who walked before us, we can learn from their wisdom, be warned by their follies, and perhaps find the inspiration to become the leaders that this present moment demands. The echoes of their decisions still shape our world, and the choices we make today will echo into the future. Thank you for watching. We appreciate your time and curiosity as we explored the lessons of history's greatest leaders together. If you enjoyed this journey, please like and subscribe for more stories that inspire and challenge us all. Until next time, keep seeking wisdom. And remember, your choices today can shape the leaders of tomorrow.